Hello YouTubers. We will finish this sequence from this chapter on Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia or India with kind of looking at two distinct cases of newly formed nations and struggles with governing. And we'll look at two very different cases, one in the Middle East with Iran and one in South Asia with India. We'll talk about some of the struggles and successes of these two places and kind of their relationship to the other newly forming nations at the time. So first of all, let's start with India. So Gandhi, who was one of the country's foremost nationalist leaders, was assassinated prior to formal Indian independence and therefore was never a formal political leader for the Indians, but his closest ally, Jawaharlal Nehru, who just so happens to have my very favorite first name probably in all of history, took power and became the leader of the newly independent India. Now, India was dealing with some of the same issues that many other nation states in Africa and the Middle East were dealing with, which was intense, mostly religious conflict. So there were three kind of major religions that stood to gain power or wanted to gain power, and all feared for the other religions gaining power. And this was the Hindu majority, which is what India was mainly consisting of, was the Hindus. And then the Muslim minority, which was probably about a 20% minority in the territory before it was split up between India, which was mostly Hindu, and then Pakistan, which was mostly Muslim. And then there was the Sikh community, mostly in the north, which never attained an independent state of their own. So these three religious beliefs and adherents basically were fighting for a right to control themselves, and that was kind of the underlying tone of the religious aspect of India. So India and Pakistan were divided to begin with, and Pakistan was there was the West Pakistan and East Pakistan, which would later become Bangladesh, both Muslim majority countries now, and so they don't share some of the same problems that India has faced, being the Hindu majority area. So Jawaharlal Nehru took power, and the West feared that because they were so close to China and that Nehru looked as though he was pushing for liberal reforms, that India was going to go down a route that was in line with communism. But Nehru, while he was pushing for liberal reforms, also allowed pretty heavy foreign investment and realized he needed to do this in order to be successful. And so they invested heavily in the technology sector, and also were one of the major areas where the Green Revolution first took hold. So this was an advance by Western scientists in order to create new farming techniques which would feed the masses that were growing. And India had a burgeoning population, rivaled only by China, who is the only other nation on the planet with more people than India. But the Green Revolution is not what you would think it is. It's not an environmental movement. It's in fact quite the opposite of an environmental movement. The Green Revolution was a way to produce huge crops, or huge crop yields, by creating hybrid and genetically modified seeds and foods, and then relying intensively on irrigation and fertilizers, pesticides and herbicides and that kind of stuff in order to produce food. So that's kind of where the Green Revolution has gone to, and it's been really beneficial because it's fed the masses, but it's been detrimental because of its impact on the environment and the fact that it fed the masses. And so food supply has been able to keep up, and we are now in this situation where we are at this ever-increasing population, and there's still fears of when the food will run out. So that's kind of been one of the issues that India's had to deal with, as well as their huge population. They are, however, the largest democracy on the planet. They continue to run as a democratic nation, and they have ever since. They deal also with massive amounts of poverty. The social gap and the socioeconomic gap between the rich and the poor is very great. There's some of the biggest slums on the planet in India, and if you want to watch some of that, Slumdog Millionaire might be a good movie to check out for modern Indian issues, especially with poverty and lack of development. But you also get to see a glimpse into their entrance into the tech world. So I think I hear my baby crying, and so I'm going to have to run upstairs and give him a little kiss goodnight before I move on to Iran. So we'll talk about Iran in the next video, which will be much shorter. Be awesome, and I'll see you soon.